More bonus content. So the topic of today's short talk actually came from a tweet I saw, and it was to do with Marcus Rashford and how he's doing at Barcelona, and saying how this team needs to be built around him, or he needs a team built around him to succeed. And that gave me an idea here, and I tweeted about it as well. And it is that 99% of the time, if someone says a player needs an entire team built around them, or they need to be the main man of the team, it means that that player simply is not a winning player. So, timer is underway. The reason for this is that usually it doesn't take long for a coach to figure out that a player is good enough to be built around. So all of a sudden, you have this player who is the sun, who everything revolves around, and everyone else is just a cog in the machinery around this player. If one of the cogs in the machinery needs to be a main man in a team, the chances, and he's on the same team as this other guy, the chances are he's not as good as this guy, which means that he's not good enough to justify having the team built around him instead of him. And if he's not good enough to do that, and he also isn't good enough to be a cog, and he can only be in that niche down main man role, then he's not a winning player. Because ultimately, the objective of these games and these seasons, for the vast majority of teams, is to win as many games as possible so they can ultimately get to the next level, whether it's winning trophies or getting to the next level competition that they want to enter. And the truth is, if a player cannot be a part of a winning infrastructure just by being a cog in the machinery, and they're also not good enough to be the main man, then that team would be better off getting rid of that player. For example, so it doesn't take a genius to figure out that if you build around Lionel Messi, you're going to get 90 plus points. It didn't take a genius to figure out that if you built around Lamine Yamal's strengths today, you were going to get 90 plus points. 85, 90 plus points. His floor at the minute is probably 80 to 85 plus points. He will easily break that 90 plus point barrier sooner rather than later. It didn't take a genius to figure out in basketball that if you build around LeBron James and his strengths, he is going to have you as one of the 3 or 4 best teams at bare minimum every single year. It didn't take a genius to figure out that if you built around Michael Jordan, you're going to win a bunch of games and a bunch of titles. It didn't take real smartass to do any of these things. In football, on the opposite example, Cristiano Ronaldo, when he declined and he was at Juventus, and especially United, he needed certain concessions to be made around him. Those concessions were made even though he would have been better suited as a cog. Now, his was more of a mental thing as opposed to a skill set thing, but ultimately, he didn't want to be a cog in the machinery, and that led to the downfall of the team to a certain degree, whereas if they went along with another striking option such as Cavani, who was more likely to be a cog in the machinery, they probably would have done better in that same season had Cavani stayed healthy. His health is another issue. If we were to go across to basketball, let's take Kyrie Irving. If a team were to build around his strength, the chances are they're not going to win very much. And we saw that because ultimately he had one crack at it and he was an awful leader. So Kyrie actually probably isn't the best example because he never really had a team fully built around his strengths. He's just a person who I can Luka Doncic is someone who you can justify building a team around because of the fact that he will get you a bunch of wins and he will get you on deep playoff runs. Whereas someone else, let's take one of my favourites, Ben Simmons from back in the day. I'm at 3 seconds here, so I'm going to go over a little bit here. So Ben Simmons is someone who he could not be a cog in a team because he couldn't shoot and he needed the entire infrastructure of the team built around him. So when you need the entire infrastructure, but Joel Embiid is obviously better than Ben Simmons. So you can't justify booting out Joel Embiid to build around Ben Simmons unless you're on 2K because ultimately you're not going to win as many games with this guy as the main man as you are with this guy, even if you do go on Fugazi 18-game win streaks in Ben Simmons' rookie year. So ultimately, what now you have to do is you have to make up for that by getting other players in. But the thing is, with Ben, he wasn't good enough to be a cog in the machinery of Joel. And as a result, he ultimately ends up not being a winning player. And he's a net negative on his team's chances of winning titles, which is ultimately why Ben ultimately had to leave. The thing is, if a player doesn't because a lot of the time it's want. If a player doesn't want to be a cog, and their skill set doesn't allow them to be, they have to be moved on. Because the chances are you're not going to win anything with them there. Because their playstyle naturally leeches off of other players and it doesn't maximize everyone else in the way that the best players who have the teams built around them actually can. That's all I got for you today. Like, comment, subscribe. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do the examples I make fit? And I will talk to you again in the next one. Bye-bye.